Bishop takes f5. Brilliant move. King h8. Bishop e6. White's position is overwhelming. He now threatens to advance his pawn to g4 and then to g5, attacking the pinned knight. Queen's Indian defense, 27 moves. Alekhine takes advantage of a slight error and defeats his opponent quickly with a series of sharp moves and pretty combinations. Alekhine was world champion from 1937-1946. d4. Knight f6, preventing 2e4. c4, putting pressure on d5. e6. Knight f3. Bishop b4, check. Knight bd2. b6. The Queen's Indian defense. Black moves the bishop to b7 to put pressure on the center. g3. The usual counter to the bishop on b7. Bishop b7. Bishop g2. Short castle, continuing development. Short castle. Bishop takes d2. This is a questionable move since the bishop was more powerful than the knight. The key to White's attack in this game is the power of his dark squared bishop. Queen takes d2. With Black's dark squared bishop gone, White plans to place a bishop on b2, exerting strong pressure along the diagonal. d6. Black want to develop the knight on d7 rather than on c6, where it would block the bishop on b7 and the pawn on c7. b3. The bishop is going to be well placed on b2. Knight bd7. Bishop b2. Rook b8. Black wants the bishop to be protected so that after knight e4 the knight will not become pinned to the bishop after White moves his queen and knight. However, this is a passive place for the rook. Rook ad1. Knight e4. The knight is Black's best placed piece. Queen e3. White would like to trade off the knight with 13 knight d2. f5. Now Black can meet 13 knight d2 with knight df6. d5. This limits the scope of Black's bishop and increases the scope of White's queen bishop. If 13 e5 then 14 knight h4 knight ec5 15 f4 threatening 16 f takes e5 knight takes e5 17 knight takes f5. Black cannot win a piece with 15 e takes f4 16 queen takes f4 grams 5 because a 17 queen d threatening 18 queen takes g7, checkmate. E takes d5. C takes d5. Knight df6, attacking the pawn on d5. It doesn't look like it can be defended. Knight h4. Black cannot capture the pawn on d5 safely. If 15 bishop takes d5 then 16 bishop takes f6 queen takes f6, or 16 knight takes f6 17 bishop takes d5 17 rook takes d5. If 15 knight takes d5 then 16 rook takes d5 1 bishop takes d5 17 queen d4 threatening queen takes g7, checkmate. 17 queen d7 18 queen takes d5, check. And Black's rook and pawn are no match for White's two bishops. Queen d7. Bishop h3, pinning the pawn on f5 and therefore removing its ability to protect the knight on e4. If 16 knight takes d5 then 17 queen takes e4 f takes e4 18 bishop takes d7 wins. If 16 bishop takes d5 then 17 rook takes d5 knight takes d5 18 queen takes e4 f takes e4 19 bishop takes d7 and although material is even, White has a winning positional advantage. g6. Black has been forced to weaken his dark squares and thus enhance the effectiveness of White's bishop on b2. f3. White chases away Black's best placed piece and prepares for an eventual e4 breaking open the position. Knight c5. Queen g5, pinning the pawn on g6 and threatening to take the pawn on f5 with either the knight or the bishop. White also clears the way for moving a pawn to e4. Queen g7, breaking the pin and bringing the queen over to help defend the king. b4. Knight cd7. e4, threatening the pawn on f5. If 20 f takes e4 21 bishop takes d7 queen takes d7 22 bishop takes f6 wins a piece. Knight takes e4. This looks like a saving move. If 21 f takes e4 then 21 queen takes b2. If 21 bishop takes g2 knight takes g5 22 bishop takes f8 knight takes h3, check. 23 king g2 rook takes f8 24 king takes h3 knight f6 25 rook f1 knight takes d5 and black has a good position with a bishop and 2 pawns for a rook. Queen c1. Good move. Knight ef6. The only way to save the knight and the queen. Bishop takes f5. Brilliant move. King h8. Bishop e6. White's position is overwhelming. He now threatens to advance his pawn to g4 and then to g5 attacking the pinned knight. Bishop a6. A minor distraction. Rook fe1. Knight e5. Attempting to break the pin on the a1 h8 diagonal. f4. The diagonal will be unblocked. Knight d3. Forking the queen and rook. Rook takes d3. White is happy to exchange a rook for a knight in this position. Bishop takes d3. g4. Black resigned because there is no way to stop 28 grams 5. A possible continuation is 28 h6 29 g5 h takes g5 30 f takes g5 king h7 31 bishop takes f6 rook takes f6 32 grams takes f6 queen takes f6 33 knight g2 and white is up a piece.